Black man is kicked out. The city buzzed with life as Jaden Brooks stepped into the sleek glass lobby of Liberty Financial Advisors, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The towering skyscrapers reflected the golden sunlight, symbolizing the ambition that filled the air. Today marked a milestone in his career, a pivotal moment he had tirelessly worked toward. A new chapter awaited him, one filled with promise and potential. Taking a deep breath, Jaden inhaled the rich scent of fresh coffee wafting through the lobby. It invigorated him, pushing away all fears and doubts. He had sacrificed late nights and early mornings, driven by a determination that burned bright within him. Today was not just any day, it was his time to shine. Yet, as he stepped onto the elevator, the weight of unspoken words settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. He glanced at his reflection in the brushed steel, feeling both proud and anxious. Would hard work alone be enough to navigate this world layered with challenges and prejudice? With the elevator doors sliding open, Jaden emerged onto his floor, greeted by the vibrant energy of colleagues bustling around the open-plan office. However, as he walked towards his desk, a shadow flickered at the corner of his vision, a huddle of co-workers whispering and glancing in his direction. The laughter that followed felt like arrows aimed at his heart. He knew those words were directed at him. Does he really think he can climb the ladder so quickly? Feeling a pang of doubt, Jaden swallowed hard and reminded himself of what he had achieved. He'd earned his place here, finishing top of his class and consistently exceeding targets. He was more than capable. Yet, the dismissive comments echoed in his mind, gnawing at his confidence like a relentless storm. Then came the moment that would unravel the fabric of his aspirations. The heavy doors of the boardroom swung open, and in strode Vanessa Hale, the chief financial officer, a woman whose commanding presence was rivaled only by her chilling demeanor. She exuded power, her tailored suit giving no hint of vulnerability, her icy gaze striking fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned executives. To Jaden, she represented not just authority, but the very embodiment of the barriers he must navigate. "Good morning, team," Vanessa announced, her voice resonating with a sharp confidence that immediately silenced the room. Jaden's heart raced as he took his seat among his peers, feeling the weight of all eyes upon him. She was here to lead the meeting, and with her came a palpable tension, thick enough to slice. As the discussion turned lively, Jaden seized the moment to present his innovative project proposal, a forward-thinking strategy aimed at increasing diversity within the firm while optimizing client outreach. His passion ignited as he spoke, each word laced with hope and determination. But as he looked around the room, he sensed a shift in the air, a collective gaze that turned indifferent the moment he mentioned the need for change. "What a charming concept, Jaden," Vanessa interrupted, her smile painted on with practiced ease. "But surely we cannot risk our reputation on such ambitious ideas. It might be better to stick to what has worked in the past. Stability is key." With that, Jaden felt his excitement crash down around him like brittle glass. A wave of murmurs swept through the room, colleagues exchanging glances that spoke volumes. He watched, helpless, as Vanessa expertly manipulated the narrative, weaving a web of doubt around his capabilities. The chill of her words pierced through his resolve, igniting a tempest of self-doubt within him. "Everyone knows change is difficult," she continued, drumming her fingers on the table. "And we should be cautious about how we present ourselves in front of clients." Behind her facade of confidence lay an unmistakable undertone of threat, and Jaden could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. Jaden's throat tightened, but he mustered his courage. "With all due respect, Vanessa, adapting to new strategies is essential for growth in today's market. We must showcase," Vanessa cut him off again, her voice steeped in condescension. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Jaden, but we really don't want to appear overly ambitious." The laughter that followed felt like knives, twisting deeper with each exchange. Jaden felt diminished, reduced to a mere shadow of his former self amidst whispers of doubt and ridicule. The very thing that had fueled his fire, his determination, was being used against him. He lowered his gaze, trying to shield himself from the torrent of humiliation. As the meeting dragged on, Jaden's heart sank further into despair. He glanced around the room. Colleagues who had once celebrated his successes now bore an air of expectancy, eager to side with the powerful. The storm raging within him dulled to a flicker of defiance, a thought emerging from the chaos. This isn't right. As the meeting concluded, Jaden stood at the threshold of a decision. Defeated yet determined, he mused over Vanessa's underhanded tactics and the impact of corporate racism. He recognized that this moment could define him, a turning point that demanded he either comply or rise against the tide that sought to wash him away. Drenched in anger and frustration, he felt an ember ignite deep within him. The realization that he could either continue to be a victim of this system or confront it head-on sparked an awakening. Jaden straightened his shoulders, planting his feet firmly on the ground. He would fight against the oppressive narrative that sought to silence him. That night, Jaden sat at his desk, the soft glow of the computer screen illuminating his determined face. Thoughts raced through his mind as he drafted a proposal that featured not only his original ideas but also emphasized the need for transformation within the firm. Change was necessary and long overdue, and he would no longer be quiet about it. Tomorrow, he will return with newfound resolve. No longer just Jaden Brooks, the ambitious junior analyst, he would be Jaden Brooks, a force to be reckoned with in the pursuit of justice. This moment of self-discovery was not merely the beginning of a professional battle, it was a declaration of his worth, his right to claim space in a world that continually sought to deny him. With the ink drying on his proposal, Jaden knew that the fight ahead would be fraught with challenges. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of hope gleaming before him, illuminating the path toward change, equity, and ultimately, justice. Jaden Brooks stepped confidently into the sleek lobby of Liberty Financial Advisors, his heart fluttering with excitement and hope. As he strode past the marble floor and polished glass, the bustle of the office came alive around him. This was his moment. He had spent years working and building up to this point. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter, a chance to show the world what he could achieve. He took a deep breath, inhaling the mingling scents of fresh coffee and new beginnings. With a smile on his face, he adjusted his tie and headed toward his desk. In the midst of the everyday chaos of ringing phones and murmured conversations, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. He thought of the hard work that had brought him here, late nights poring over financial reports, long hours spent proving himself among seasoned professionals. But as he settled into his workspace, he felt an unsettling shift in the air. The laughter of a few colleagues rippled through the office, and he caught snippets of conversation that pierced through his initial joy. "Does he really think he belongs here?" one voice snickered. "Looks like he's aiming too high for a junior analyst," another remarked. Each comment flicked at his confidence like a tiny blade, reminding him of the undercurrents of prejudice that often seeped into moments of triumph. In that moment, he felt a familiar twinge of doubt. Was he really good enough? Jaden had always known he faced challenges that others didn't, but today, the weight of those invisible barriers settled heavily on his shoulders. He shook his head, pushing back against the creeping self-doubt. He had earned his place here. The atmosphere thickened as Vanessa Hale, the chief financial officer, entered the boardroom. She walked in with an air of authority, the kind that silenced conversations and commanded attention without a word. Jaden felt a shiver run down his spine. As Vanessa swept her gaze across the room, he felt as though her icy demeanor cut right through him. She smiled, but he knew it was a smile that could hide daggers. "Good morning, team," she announced, her voice smooth yet firm. For a moment, Jaden felt some of his anxiety ease. He knew she was powerful, but perhaps in this meeting, he could impress her and shift the tide in his favor. As the meeting began, Jaden prepared to present his innovative proposal, a fresh perspective aimed at diversifying their client outreach while enhancing the company's cultural engagement. He believed it was time to break free from the stagnant norms and embrace change. Passion surged within him as he spoke, his words spilling out with enthusiasm. Imagine expanding our client base by reaching out to underrepresented communities through tailored financial education programs, Jaden proposed, his voice steady. He could feel the heat of the spotlight on him. This was his moment to shine. Vanessa's gaze flickered with a hint of disapproval, and before he could finish, she interjected, "That's a charming concept, Jaden. However, we must remember that stability is key in our industry. We wouldn't want to appear too ambitious." The ambiguity in her tone sent a jolt through him. The underlying message was clear: this was not just a disagreement, it was a calculated strike against his aspirations. The room shifted with unease as murmurs of agreement echoed among his colleagues. Jaden's heart sank. He watched helplessly as she began to twist his words, dismantling his proposal while weaving a narrative that painted him as naive. "We must adhere to what has worked. Let's not risk our reputation for untested ideas," she said, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that felt like a challenge. Each word felt like a weight pressing down upon him, igniting a tempest of self-doubt. He struggled to counter her arguments, but with every attempt, Vanessa's dismissive glances and the unwillingness of his colleagues to support him created a wall around him that was impenetrable. As the meeting dragged on, Jaden felt frustration bubble beneath the surface. How could they not see the importance of change? With each passing moment, the storm inside him raged, clashing against the sense of helplessness that threatened to drown him. It was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. Finally, the meeting concluded in a haze of uncertainty. Jaden gathered his papers, feeling defeated, yet there was a flicker of determination igniting within him. He stepped out of the boardroom, the weight of the world on his shoulders, but deep down, he felt something shift. "Keep your head up, Jaden," a sympathetic voice called from behind him. It was Lisa, a junior analyst who had also faced her share of challenges. "You have great ideas. They just can't see it yet." "Thanks, Lisa," he replied, forcing a smile. "No worries. Just remember, change takes time." As he walked away, Jaden reflected on Lisa's words. This was not just about him, it was also about the countless others who endured this every day. The realization solidified his resolve. He wouldn't allow Vanessa or anyone else to silence him. That evening, under the dim light of his apartment, Jaden sat at his desk, surrounded by a sea of papers and empty coffee cups. He could hear the echo of Vanessa's dismissive remarks in his mind, fueling an inner fire that refused to fizzle out. He needed to regroup and strategize. He opened his laptop and began drafting a new proposal, one that would not only detail his innovative ideas but also highlight the importance of diversity and representation in their industry. "No more playing it safe," he murmured to himself, a sense of empowerment flooding through him. Tomorrow, he would confront the system that sought to suppress him. He would not be just a junior analyst, he would be Jaden Brooks, the catalyst for change. That night, he fell into a deep sleep, the gears of his mind turning with possibilities. Tomorrow was a new day, and with it came the chance to ignite a revolution, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized or dismissed. When dawn broke, he awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. With resolve anchoring his spirit, Jaden prepared to rise against the tide and reclaim his story. It was time to fight back for justice. It was time to make his voice heard. This script embraces the themes of struggle, empowerment, and resilience, encapsulating Jaden's journey through prejudice while building tension and emotional depth. Let me know if you need any adjustments or have any other requests. Jaden sat quietly in the corner of the bustling office, his heart pounding as he maneuvered his phone discreetly, the recording app open and ready. In front of him, Vanessa Hale, the CFO, stood at the head of the conference table, her presence commanding yet suffocating. Her words flowed eloquently, but Jaden knew the ugly truth hidden beneath her polished facade. "And as we all know," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with disdain, "it's crucial that we maintain the standards that keep our team at the pinnacle of financial success. We can't afford to elevate ideas from those who may not understand the nuances of our clientele." Jaden held his breath, each word stoking a fire of anger within him. He felt a simultaneous rush of fear and determination. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, evidence of the systemic racism he had suspected all along. As he recorded her, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap. With every passing second, the weight of her words sank deeper into Jaden's consciousness. He listened intently, his pulse quickening as she continued. We need to stick with what works. Minorities tend to struggle with these complex strategies. Let's not waste time trying to change that. A surge of empowerment coursed through him. He was no longer just a passive observer. Jaden could feel that this evidence might transform his reality. The fear of retaliation vanished, replaced by a resolve to expose the deep-rooted biases that suffocated talented individuals in his firm. Later that day, uneasy thoughts swirled in his mind as he made his way to a dimly lit cafe nearby. He had arranged to meet with a former employee, someone who had left Liberty Financial Advisors under questionable circumstances. As he entered, his eyes scanned the room until he spotted Blake, a man who had once been a mentor to him. Jaden, Blake greeted, shifting nervously as he slid into the booth. I've got some documents that I think you need to see. The documents were a revelation, a compilation of evidence showcasing unfair practices within the company, from biased hiring decisions to unjust dismissals, specifically targeting minority employees. As Jaden leaned closer, their eyes locked, and a shared understanding crystallized between them. It's messed up, isn't it? Blake whispered, his voice filled with anger. I couldn't take it anymore, they were sabotaging me for being different. Me too, Jaden replied, his voice barely above a whisper. But I think we can do something about it. Together, they forged a bond, a shared mission to spark change. The weight of their conversation was heavy as they made plans, fear transforming into a flicker of hope. They needed to expose the truth, not only for themselves but for those still trapped in the oppressive system. Days later, while organizing his notes at work, Jaden's attention was caught by an unexpected visitor. A journalist named Sarah had come to the office, intrigued by whispers of discontent within Liberty. When she approached him, Jaden felt an exhilarating mix of anxiety and excitement. Hi, Jaden. I'm Sarah. I've heard quite a bit about what's been happening here, and I believe there's a significant story to uncover, she said, her eyes widening with interest. Jaden was taken aback. Are you serious? Someone's actually interested? They should be. I've been following your situation, she continued, her tone earnest. You have the chance to expose the systemic racism within Liberty Financial Advisors. I think people need to hear your story. The prospect of amplifying his voice filled Jaden with urgency. I have recordings, documents, everything we need to show the truth, he said, his heart racing. Then let's do it, Sarah encouraged, her demeanor confident. Together, we can reveal what's really happening behind those walls. As they began to strategize, Jaden felt a renewed sense of empowerment growing inside him. He could finally seize control of the narrative. No longer would he allow Vanessa and her ilk to undermine his worth. With the support of Blake and Sarah, Jaden began gathering a coalition of junior staff who shared similar experiences. During lunch breaks, they whispered about their struggles, bonding over stories of discrimination and injustice. Their conversations turned into a determined effort to confront the culture of silence and complicity at Liberty. One afternoon, as they huddled in a conference room, Jaden rose to speak. I know many of you have faced challenges because of who you are. We can't let fear hold us back. Vanessa and her ilk want to silence us, but together, we're stronger than they realize. The group nodded, faces filled with determination. What do we want? Jaden continued. Change. What do we deserve? A chance. The energy in the room ignited, they were no longer alone. They mapped out their plan to evidence the toxic environment they faced and to prepare a comprehensive report that articulated their experiences and the changes needed to create a more inclusive workplace. They were united, ready to face the obstacles ahead. As days turned into weeks, Jaden's resolve only strengthened. He could finally see a path forward, a way to reclaim their narrative and hold the decision-makers accountable. It was time to expose the truth that had long been buried beneath layers of fear and oppression. Jaden felt a rush of excitement and purpose. Justice was closer than ever. With allies beside him, he was ready to confront the challenges that lay ahead and transform their collective anguish into a force for positive change. No longer would they allow silence to prevail, now was their time to rise. In the heart of Liberty Financial Advisors, the atmosphere buzzed with a charged energy, a ripple of discontent hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Jaden Brooks stood near the coffee station, quietly observing the subtle shifts in his colleagues. Whispers had turned into bold conversations, and employees who once feared Vanessa Hale's authority were now gathering in small clusters, sharing their stories of discrimination and manipulation. "Did you hear what Vanessa did to Lisa?" one analyst remarked, her voice low but fierce. "She had the nerve to say that Lisa's ideas wouldn't fit our client profiles because people like her don't understand our market." "I can't believe it," another replied, shaking his head. "It's about time someone spoke up. She thinks she's untouchable." Jaden felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. He had been waiting for this moment, the moment when fear would crumble and the truth would rise. Observing his colleague's courage stirred something deep inside, a determination to push back against the oppressive mantle of silence. He had been afraid to speak out, but now, surrounded by allies, he could feel the weight of change looming just ahead. Across the office, Vanessa strode down the corridor, her usual confident stride appearing slightly less assured today. Though she wore her trademark smile, it didn't reach her eyes. Jaden remembered the times he had felt anxious under her piercing stare. But today, something was different. It was as if the walls that had once felt so impenetrable were beginning to crack. Inside the boardroom, a pivotal meeting was unfolding. Tension permeated the air as an influential investor, Mr. Thompson, voiced his deep concern about the growing discontent within the firm. "We cannot afford the negative press," he cautioned. "I need to see action, accountability. The last thing we want is to lose our stakeholders' confidence." Jaden's pulse quickened as he listened from outside the door, feeling the swirling tide of anxiety rising within him. This was the moment he had envisioned, the call for accountability that could finally shake Vanessa from her pedestal. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever might unfold next. "Mr. Thompson, I assure you we are addressing these concerns," Vanessa replied, her voice steady but betraying a hint of panic. Jaden couldn't help but notice her unease. It was a stark contrast to her usual commanding presence, and he felt a rush of exhilaration. One by one, memories of fear flooded back, the meetings where she had belittled his ideas, those times when her icy demeanor had stifled his voice. But witnessing the growing dissent now cast light on a future where her grip could slip. As the meeting stretched on, whispers gathered momentum throughout the office, stories of prejudice, of manipulation by Vanessa, and of life lost under her iron fist began to emerge. Jaden's heart swelled with solidarity as colleagues shared their own pain in hushed tones. "I thought I was the only one," a woman confessed, wiping a tear from her cheek. Jaden could feel the weight of their stories resonating in his chest. This was far more than just vindication, it was a call to action. He sensed that the atmosphere was shifting, giving way to a chorus of voices determined to reclaim their worth and dignity. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar figure. Blake, his close ally, approached him, looking visibly agitated yet resolute. "Jaden, I have something you need to see," he said, urgency in his voice. He leaned closer and whispered, "I got hold of some emails. They reveal everything, Vanessa's manipulations, her underhanded tactics to sabotage anyone who threatens her position." Jaden's eyes widened as Blake pulled out his phone, scrolling to reveal a series of emails that confirmed all the suspicions he had harbored. Each message painted a grim picture of Vanessa's tactics. She had crafted a web of deceit designed to suppress minority contributions, ensuring that only those within her inner circle thrived. "This is huge," Jaden said, heart pounding. "We have to expose this. It's not just about us anymore, it's about everyone who has suffered under her control." Just then, a commotion erupted as news of the emails began to spread. Conversations within the office escalated from whispers to fervent discussions. The atmosphere had transformed, an undercurrent of bravery permeated the once silent corners of Liberty Financial Advisors. As the day unfolded, Jaden watched the tide turn before his eyes. Thanks to Blake's leaked emails, previously silenced voices began to rise in unison, echoing tales of discrimination and betrayal. Employees who had lived in shadows were now stepping into the light, empowering one another and fueling a movement dedicated to systemic change. Standing firm amidst the chaos, Jaden felt the power of truth settling within him. This was more than just a rebellion against Vanessa's regime, it was a collective awakening. No longer would they allow themselves to be stifled. The balance of power was shifting, and Jaden seized the moment to rally others, urging them to join together in their quest for justice. "Together, we are stronger," he addressed the growing crowd, voice resonant with passion. "This ends now. We will not be sidelined or diminished any longer. It's time for our stories to be heard. It's time for real change." As cheers erupted and colleagues joined hands in solidarity, Jaden felt a surge of hope. Empowerment radiated through the office like a vibrant current, annihilating the remnants of fear. Vanessa's authority was crumbling, and Jaden knew there was no turning back. With a newfound sense of resolve igniting within him, he declared, "We will fight for our place in this company, for our dignity and respect. We deserve to be heard, and we will not rest until justice is served." The collective cries of agreement echoed through the office, a resounding chorus that pierced the air, a promise of resilience, one that would challenge the status quo and redefine their reality within Liberty Financial Advisors. Jaden stood at the front of the boardroom, his palms slick with sweat but his resolve unshakable. The room was filled with executives, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Overhead lights illuminated their faces, but a shadow loomed behind their polished smiles, a shadow cast by the pervasive culture of discrimination that had long been tolerated at Liberty Financial Advisors. "Thank you for having me today," Jaden began, the words spilling forth from his heart. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders, but the adrenaline coursing through his veins pushed him forward. "I'm here to discuss an issue that is no longer just a whisper in the hallways, it is a reality that impacts us all." He took a deep breath, glancing momentarily at his allies in the room. Blake and Sarah nodded subtly, their shared determination evident in their eyes. "Today, I want to confront the long-standing culture of discrimination within this firm and highlight the detrimental effects it has on our team, our productivity, and our reputation." As he spoke, Jaden unleashed the evidence he had meticulously gathered, the emails, the recordings, and the testimonies of those who had suffered under Vanessa's rule. Each piece of information felt like a brick removed from the wall that had confined him and his colleagues for too long. "Vanessa Hale has consistently undermined minority contributions," he declared, his voice rising in intensity. "She has perpetuated an environment where talented individuals fear voicing their ideas. We cannot grow as a company under these conditions." A silence fell over the room, thick and suffocating. Jaden's heart raced as he observed Vanessa across the table. Her demeanor shifted from confident to strained, her mask slipping as panic flickered in her eyes. "How dare you accuse me of such things," she retaliated, her voice sharper than he had ever heard. "I've worked tirelessly to uphold the standards of this firm. Your claims are unfounded, driven by personal ambition. Is that what you really believe?" Jaden countered, unwavering. "I'm not here to attack you personally, I'm here to shed light on the truth." Vanessa's hands clenched into fists as she weighed her options. In the depths of her mind, she scrambled to devise a plan, to recover the power she felt slipping away. The walls of the boardroom felt as though they were closing in, yet a devastating clarity drove her to act. Meanwhile, Jaden felt moments of doubt creeping in. What if they didn't believe him? What if Vanessa's influence was too strong to overcome? But then he remembered the solidarity he had built with his co-workers, their shared stories of oppression and fear. It was more than just his fight, it was theirs as well, and he could not back down now. Jaden, this is highly inappropriate, one of the executives stated, the discomfort evident in his voice. You are making serious allegations without concrete proof. Concrete proof? Jaden echoed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Isn't every email I've shared substantial evidence? Are the voices of your employees' experiences not enough? He looked around the room, challenging each face. This is about more than just me. This is about fostering an inclusive environment that values all contributions. Your hesitation to acknowledge that is the true problem. Suddenly, the tension peaked. Just then, Jaden's phone buzzed, and he glanced down to see an alert. A shocking video had just leaked online. He opened the link, his breath catching in his throat as he saw footage of Vanessa making discriminatory remarks about minority employees. Gasps rippled through the boardroom as the reality of the video sank in. Jaden felt a surge of validation as chaos erupted. This, he shouted over the rising tumult, is the evidence of hypocrisy we need. This is what we must fight against. The room plunged into disarray. Executives exchanged hurried glances, their once steadfast unity shattered. Jaden felt both a fearsome storm of emotions and an exhilarating sense of triumph. The tide was turning, people's eyes were finally being opened to the toxicity that had been allowed to flourish. Vanessa, you must resign, one of the executives finally said, breaking the silence. For the credibility of this firm, you can no longer remain in charge. We cannot support your leadership when it has become so tainted. Jaden felt his chest swell with hope as he watched the floor fall from under Vanessa's authority. Her expression darkened, and for the first time, he saw vulnerability flicker across her face. The realization hit her like a brick wall. You all are making a grave mistake, she shouted, her voice rising in desperation. I built this company. We want to build it together, Vanessa, Jaden replied, his voice steady. But we need you to step aside for us to do this. The power dynamics in the room had shifted irrevocably. Jaden stood firm, a testament to the truth and the courage it took to face adversity. The foundation of Liberty Financial Advisors was cracking, and with each tremorous heartbeat, he felt the burden of hope beginning to blossom within him. As the board meeting drew to a close, Jaden stepped out into the bustling office, breathless but emboldened. He had sparked a movement, a wake-up call for all who had been silenced for too long. The battle for justice had only just begun, but he was ready to lead the charge toward a new era, one where voices wouldn't just be heard, but respected and valued. With the tide turning in their favor, Jaden and his allies were determined to dismantle the structures of inequality that had long overshadowed their potential. Empowered by the truth, they were prepared to fight not just for their own futures, but for the future of everyone at Liberty Financial Advisors. Vanessa Hale sat in her corner office, her hands trembling slightly as she read the termination notice. The weight of the document felt heavier than lead, pressing down on her all too rapidly. She had built her career on confidence, on command, but as she faced the news, that confidence shattered into fragments. What do you mean you're letting me go? She demanded, her voice sharper than intended as she faced the panel of executives before her. Their expressions were resolute, reflecting the intensity of the scrutiny surrounding her actions. Vanessa, the backlash from your remarks and actions has caused irreversible damage, Mr. Thompson, the company president, replied, his tone serious but sympathetic. We can't afford to let this continue. We're losing clients, and stakeholders are anxious. Vanessa felt her pulse quicken. Losing clients? Fear twisted in her stomach. This was supposed to be a mere bump in her path, not the end of her empire. You can't be serious, she snapped, trying to maintain her composure. "I've held this firm together during rough times." Yet as she continued to argue, she could see the glint of resolve in their eyes. The walls began closing in, and the facade she had so carefully maintained was crumbling under the weight of truth. The mistakes, the prejudice she had tolerated and perpetuated, were now coming back to haunt her. "This isn't fair," she murmured, almost to herself, her voice faltering. Meanwhile, Jayden stood among his colleagues just beyond the boardroom door, watching the scene unfold with a swell of emotions within him. Relief mixed with a sense of justice, but also sadness for the chaos that Vanessa had sown throughout the office. Her downfall signaled a shift in the culture that had oppressed so many, yet it came at a heavy price. "Did you hear about the shares?" Blake said, breaking Jayden from his thoughts. "They've already started to plummet." "What do you mean?" Jayden felt his heart drop. He had hoped for a change, but at what cost? "Investors are panicking. Reports are surfacing about the negative press associated with her." Blake shook his head. "Liberty's reputation is in jeopardy." Jayden clenched his fists. He had believed in the firm, believed that it could foster a culture of inclusivity. Yet now, with Vanessa's termination, he realized a profound truth: the system was deeply flawed, and change often emerged from chaos. As Vanessa's departure echoed through the office, whispers turned into loud discussions. Jayden's co-workers exchanged glances and murmurs, their expressions shifting from disbelief to relief. They had lived under Vanessa's reign for too long, and now liberation hung in the air. Yet even amidst this celebration of justice, Jayden noticed something unsettling. Former allies of Vanessa, those who had once praised and supported her, began to shift allegiances. Faces he once relied on for support now wore masks of self-preservation. "I can't believe they're bailed on her like this," Blake remarked, watching a few executives slip away. "One moment they're singing her praises, and the next, they're throwing her under the bus." "She's exposed the cracks in her armor," Jayden replied. "Their loyalty was never to her, it was to their own positions." As the day dragged on, Jayden felt the bittersweet taste of victory wash over him. Vanessa's termination was a step forward, but it didn't erase the scars her leadership had left behind. He and his colleagues shared knowing glances, reflecting on their struggles and the bravery they had displayed in unity. This moment was not just about her downfall, it was about reclaiming their collective power. In the days following, the atmosphere at Liberty Financial Advisors transformed. Colleagues who had once whispered in corners now stood together, sharing their experiences of prejudice and discrimination among themselves. Slowly, the air began to buzz with hope and solidarity. Jayden gathered with a group of co-workers during lunch breaks, discussing their vision for the future of the firm. "Together, we can make sure this doesn't happen again," he said, his voice steady. "We deserve a workplace where everyone is valued, not silenced by fear." "Absolutely," Lisa, a fellow analyst, chimed in. "It's time for changes in policies, training, everything. We need inclusivity ingrained in our culture." "We can hold meetings, create committees," Blake suggested, excitement bubbling in his voice. "We have the evidence, we have the numbers. They can't ignore us anymore." As conversations flowed, Jayden felt a rush of empowerment. He was no longer the isolated junior analyst who feared Vanessa's scrutiny. He was a leader in the making, guided by the strength of his peers. The day culminated in a gathering where employees shared their testimonies, recounting their experiences while standing in solidarity. Jayden was overwhelmed by the chorus of voices that rose, fearless and determined to reclaim their space. As they spoke, the tension of years past lifted. "This is just the beginning," Jayden urged, his words resonating through the room. "We are all in this together. If we stand strong now, we can reshape our workplace into something extraordinary." As they continued to share, the air thickened with purpose. Jayden stood among his peers with a renewed sense of hope, knowing that justice, while hard-won, was worth it. The power dynamics had shifted, and it was a new dawn for Liberty Financial Advisors. With every story shared and every pledge made, Jaden felt the collective strength and resilience growing. They were no longer just victims of an oppressive regime, they were a movement. And together, they would forge a brighter, more inclusive future, transforming the shattered pieces of their past into a united foundation for justice. Jaden stood in the heart of Liberty Financial Advisors, his chest swelling with pride as he prepared to address the team for the first time in his new leadership role. The buzz of excitement within the office was palpable, change was finally on the horizon, and he felt like the spark igniting that flames of transformation. "Thank you all for gathering today," he began, his voice steady and resolute. "I'm honored to stand before you as we embark on a new chapter for our firm. It's time we prioritize diversity and accountability within our walls, and I promise you that transparency will be at the forefront of everything we do." A wave of applause washed over him, filling the room with hope and energy. Jaden flashed a smile, feeling the weight of his journey from victim to advocate lift off his shoulders. He continued, "We've all seen the impact of the toxic culture here, and together, we can create an environment where every voice is heard and valued." As he unveiled a series of groundbreaking initiatives, colleagues leaned in, captivated by the vision he painted. "We will implement training programs dedicated to recognizing and dismantling systemic biases. We will hold regular town hall meetings, where you can share your stories without fear." Whispers of agreement broke out among the staff, and Jaden felt a rush of validation. He could see the change beginning to take root in the faces around him, a reflection of the hope blossoming within their hearts. In the following weeks, Liberty Financial Advisors transformed. Town hall meetings became spaces of celebration and learning, where employees shared their journeys and listened to one another with open hearts. Jaden facilitated the meetings, guiding conversations and fostering a sense of community that had long been absent. "Thank you for sharing, Lisa," Jaden encouraged one afternoon as a coworker spoke about her struggles to be heard within the company. "Your experience matters, and it's voices like yours that will help us grow together." Lisa beamed, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I never thought I'd feel comfortable sharing my story here. It's so empowering to know we have your support." Jaden smiled back, realizing how essential these moments were in rebuilding trust among the team. He took pride in knowing they were finally breaking down the barriers of silence that had perpetuated the toxic culture. However, as the new era at Liberty flourished, Vanessa sat alone in her now deserted office, grappling with the bitter consequences of her actions. The once coveted power she had wielded now felt like chains binding her in isolation. She watched as Jaden flourished, leading the firm toward a brighter future without her. "You think this will work?" she muttered to herself, staring at the wall adorned with accolades that now felt hollow. The emptiness echoed in her heart, a reminder of the manipulations that had created such a toxic environment. She had carved her path with sharp elbows and cold ambition, but in doing so, she had lost the very thing that once fueled her, respect. Rumors of her incompetence and cruelty had circulated throughout the office like wildfire. The loyalty of her once admiring team had vanished, replaced by contempt and whispers of resignation. In stark contrast to Jaden's empowerment, her decline felt like a haunting image, an unwanted reflection in her mirror, a constant reminder that her downfall was entirely self-inflicted. Meanwhile, Jaden's authentic leadership style rippled beyond the walls of Liberty Financial Advisors. His charisma and passion for equity inspired not only his colleagues but also sparked conversations in neighboring firms. He became a beacon of hope, demonstrating how resilience could transform a toxic environment into one of empowerment. "Jaden, you're making waves," Blake remarked one day as they sat discussing potential partnerships with other companies. "People are starting to notice what you're doing here. And they want to be a part of it," Jaden replied, a smile breaking across his face. "This is just the beginning. We can change the culture across the industry." As he walked through the halls, he could feel the upbeat atmosphere surrounding him. Employees greeted one another with warmth, conversations flowed freely, and laughter filled the air. It was a stark contrast to the years overshadowed by fear and hostility. Flashes of gratitude filled his heart as he envisioned the future. Together, we can make a real difference, he mused aloud, glancing at Blake. This isn't just for us, it's for anyone who ever felt unseen. Days turned into months, each one culminating in new initiatives, programs, and a vibrant culture of inclusivity. Jayden felt a profound sense of purpose, not only for liberty but as a champion for change across the financial world. He knew that the fight for equality was far from over, the battle against prejudice and systemic bias demanded relentless dedication and endurance. As he stood by a window one afternoon, overlooking the city, he saw a glimmer of hope shining in the distance. The sun painted the skyline gold, lighting up his resolve to ensure that the lessons learned would inspire lasting change. This was the path forward, a journey of growth, understanding, and resilience, where every voice mattered. Jayden was ready to continue his fight, to push for justice, and to forge ahead, determined to create a legacy that would endure long after he was gone. Vanessa Hale sat in her office, staring blankly at the walls that had once felt like a fortress of power. Now they closed in on her, a reminder of her downfall. As whispers of her actions circulated throughout the office, she saw former allies exchange furtive glances and shrug her off like a forgotten relic. The news of her termination became a cautionary tale echoed in hushed tones among her peers. "Did you hear what happened to Vanessa?" A voice floated through the air, thick with gossip. "She thought she was untouchable." "Serves her right," another colleague replied. "You can't treat people that way and expect to hold on to your position." Each word dug into Vanessa's heart, deepening the isolation she now felt. Once a dominant force in the firm, she was now seen as a villain, a stark warning of what could happen when one allows bias and arrogance to rule their leadership. Jayden's rise only intensified this reflection. She clenched her jaw, feeling the bitter taste of regret linger in her mouth. This was her reality now, navigating the fallout from her past, a place where power was replaced by disdain. Accountability, she realized, was a double-edged sword. Meanwhile, Jayden stood before a crowd of eager listeners, a world away from Vanessa's lonely office. With his reputation on the rise, he felt invigorated as he shared his journey at a conference on corporate ethics. "Thank you all for being here today," Jayden began, his voice steady. "I know firsthand the impact that systemic bias can have on individuals and organizations. It's a reality I've lived, and today, I stand before you as a voice for change." His story captivated the audience, weaving experiences of struggle with moments of resilience. Invitations flooded in from various panels and events, eager to hear his perspective. As he spoke about the importance of diversity and inclusivity, he could feel their energy shift. "Together, we can change the narrative," he urged, eyes gleaming with passion. "We have the power to dismantle the barriers that perpetuate inequality. It starts with each one of us doing our part." The applause that erupted felt like a wave washing over him, fueling his commitment to the cause. He was no longer a victim of circumstance, he had transformed into an advocate, ready to fight for those who felt voiceless. His journey inspired others, sparking a movement that rippled throughout corporate landscapes, signaling a pivotal shift in how diversity was approached. Days later, Jayden's story caught the attention of the media. A prominent news anchor sat poised in front of the camera, ready to discuss the significant changes taking place at Liberty Financial Advisors. "Tonight, we cover a transformative moment in corporate history," the anchor began. "Jayden Brooks, a junior analyst turned advocate, has become a beacon of hope in the fight against systemic bias. His efforts have not only reshaped the culture at Liberty but have also sparked conversations about the need for change across workplaces everywhere." Jayden watched from the comfort of his home, his heart swelling with pride and disbelief. The words echoed in his mind, amplifying the importance of their collective struggle. It was more than just a personal victory, it was a victory for everyone who had faced prejudice in silence. As the news segment continued, images of his colleagues sharing their experiences filled the screen. Jayden felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes as he listened to them courageously speak about their transformations and newfound empowerment. Their voices were powerful, a chorus of resilience that had long been suppressed. After the broadcast, Jaden sat quietly, reflecting on his journey. He marveled at how far he had come since those first tentative steps into the firm. Where once there was confusion and fear, now stood determination and growth. In that moment of introspection, he acknowledged the myriad battles he had faced along the way. Each struggle had reinforced his resilience, pushing him further along the path toward equality. But beneath that feeling of accomplishment lay the understanding that their fight was far from over. "We have work to do," he reminded himself, his resolve hardening. "The struggle against injustice requires our strength and persistence." With a newfound commitment, Jaden envisioned the future. He could see businesses prioritizing inclusion and justice, where every voice was valued and respected. The dust from the past was settling, but his vision remained clear. As he walked through the halls of liberty, he felt the heartbeat of change resonating around him. He was determined to inspire others, to ensure that the lessons learned from Vanessa's cautionary tale led to meaningful progress. Jaden's heart swelled with hope for what lay ahead. He was ready to lead the charge for a new era, one where fairness was not just a goal but a reality, crafted by the courage and unity of those willing to stand together for justice. If you enjoyed this script and want to keep exploring powerful stories that illuminate the journey toward resilience and justice, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread awareness and inspire change in the conversation around racism and inclusion. Join our community for more impactful narratives, and let's continue to uplift voices that matter. Thank you for being part of this journey. Of a restaurant, the owner falls to his knees when he returns the next day.